What's going on, guys? So the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is finally over, and it was pretty good. It was really predictable, but let me know what you guys thought about it. Now it's time to move on to the show that everyone actually wants to watch, Loki. I know there's still some time before it comes out in June, but in today's video I want to take a look at Mobius M. Mobius, who will be portrayed by Owen Wilson in the Loki series.
Wow, you're so dominant.
And I've actually heard a lot of people complaining about Owen Wilson joining the MCU, and I get it, but he was in Wedding Crashers, so I can't judge him too harshly.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
Before I explain Mobius, if you're new to the channel and you like learning about MCU characters' comic origins, then hit that subscribe button. Okay, so Mobius. The MCU seems to really like bringing in some of Marvel's most obscure characters, because out of the around 40,000 comics that Marvel has published, Mobius only shows up in like a dozen. And out of that handful of issues, he's really only been an essential character in 2 stories. And I'm going to go over those 2 stories, and hopefully it will give you a good feel of the character before you watch the Loki series. So we're first introduced to Mobius in the Fantastic Four number 353. And like in the show, he's an employee of the Time Variance Authority, or the TVA. And the TVA is basically the protectors of the Omniverse's time stream. I've already done a whole video on the TVA, so if you want to check that out. So we first see Mobius working as a junior member of management at the TVA. And he's serving as the chairman for a committee overseeing the Fantastic Four's case of breaking the natural time stream. And you might notice that all the committee members look exactly alike. And that's because everyone who works at the TVA is a clone. This obviously won't play into the Loki series, since we don't see a bunch of Owen Wilsons in any of the trailers. But during the committee hearing, Mobius explains that the Fantastic Four and the entire main Marvel universe was already supposed to be destroyed about 40 years ago. And the Fantastic Four were directly involved with why the universe was able to survive, thus breaking the natural time stream. And Mobius kind of explains that there's basically only one way to fix this, and it's by having the TVA erase the entire 616 universe out of existence. And the TVA has the power to do this, and that's just how technically advanced this organization is. So after the hearing's over, Mobius puts the Fantastic Four into what's basically a jail cell, so he can send his committee findings to his superiors. But while the group is in jail, Reed asks for a tour of the TVA from Mobius, which he declines. But then when Miss Ventura asks, who was with the Fantastic Four at the time that they were abducted, and I believe she's an old girlfriend of Ben Grimm. I doubt she'll show up in the show. But after Miss Ventura gives Mobius some puppy dog eyes, Mobius agrees to give the tour.
It's beautiful. Wow.
And just because he's a clone and works as a stiff bureaucrat, this doesn't mean that he doesn't have his own desires in life. Every clone who works for the TVA has the ability to think freely, and since he's never left the TVA, he's a bit naive, and this obviously shows when he's pretty easily manipulated by a good-looking woman. But while on the tour, and when they're visiting the Hall of Chrono Monitors, Ben Grimm creates a distraction by breaking one of the monitors' desks, giving Reed time to steal the files on their universe. And when the tour is concluded, and the group is returned to the cell, they're actually able to break out, and while most of the security chase Ben and Johnny, Reed and Susan go back to the Hall of Chrono Monitors. But we jump back to Moby, who's trying to talk Ben out of fighting by promising him that he can revert him back to his normal self by altering time so the group never even receives superpowers. And this is something that Ben really considered. And his biggest thing in comics is that he looks like a monster, so he's all sad and depressed all the time. But as Ben's thinking about it, he remembers that if the group never gets their powers, that would mean that when Galactus came to Earth, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. And that basically means that all of Earth would have been destroyed. And this is more just to show that, even if you make a small change to the timeline, that can have drastic effects. But we jump back to Reed and Susan, and Reed is able to successfully install a virus on the TVA's computer system. The group is able to escape by taking the TVA's space train back to Earth, and they're able to do this by bribing the conductor of the train with all of their clothes. Yeah, it definitely gets a little weird at the end. And when this first story kind of comes to a close, we don't really see what consequences Moby has to face for allowing the Fantastic Four to get away. However, a few months later, in the Fantastic Four Annual number 27, we do get that question answered. And what we see is that Moby was not demoted. In fact, he was actually promoted. Although Mobius' failure to bring the Fantastic Four to justice still haunts him to this day. So how was Mobius able to get a promotion through all of this? Well, he did what any good employee would do. He covered it up and just fired anyone who knew about it. And then he just kept going like nothing happened. He went through all this trouble because he actually does love his job. I mean, the guy was cloned to do just this one job, but it's a job that he embraces and he really finds to be his true calling. But the Fantastic Four did steal data that is still missing to this day. And sooner or later, someone's going to notice. And that's when Moby gets a call from Mr. Alternity, the highest ranking member of the TVA. And Mr. Alternity wants to see Mobius in his office. And this naturally scares the crap out of Mobius, because he's afraid that the truth has finally caught up with him. And that's exactly what happens. Mr. Alternity wants to find the missing data files within 25 work cycles, which I have no idea what translates to, but it's not an overwhelming amount of time. And if he fails, he'll be demoted back to junior executive. So Moby goes into panic mode. he starts thinking Flarg, 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 which is like the TVA's way of swearing. I'm going to predict now that Flarg will make it into the Loki series. I know, that's a hot take. So Mobius, not knowing what else to do, he grabs the Justice, which are like the TVA's super cops, and I just now noticed that they look a lot like Judge Dredd. But they go back to Earth and snag the Fantastic Four, and also Hank Pym Ant-Man, who just so happened to be with the group during the time that they were abducted. However, after Mobius talks with Sue, it's clear that no one can find the one man that Moby actually needs, Reed Richards. And this is because Reed has disappeared during what was essentially a time travel fight with Dr. Doom. And Sue suggests why don't they just go back in time to when Reed was still around and grab him then. But Mobius is very firm with this. That would break the TVA's laws, and there is no way he's going to be doing that, at least again. So with Ben, Johnny, and Sue not really having any information that could actually help Moby, he decides to just have them erased from existence. But Ant-Man, who is able to disguise himself as one of the Justices, then takes Moby hostage, and they demand to go home. However, Mobius basically explains that there's no way of getting home, since Reed erased all the data about their universe, which begs the question of how did Mobius find them in the first place, which they don't answer. So Ben continues just to threaten him, and we really see just how important this job is to Mobius. And it shows that Mobius isn't even afraid of being killed. In fact, if he's demoted, he'd rather be killed than take the loss in status. So he's clearly someone who takes his job pretty serious. So Ant-Man suggests, well, if you're gonna get demoted, why don't you just find a new job with a different time company, one of the TVA's competitors, or at least get an offer from a competitor and use it as leverage for promotion in the TVA. And after hearing this suggestion, Moby is more shocked than anything. He would have never considered ever leaving the TVA, which again just shows how out of touch Moby and the whole TVA is with how most societies work, and he kind of shoots down the idea. He doesn't think it's going to work, but the group kind of stays with it and try to build up some confidence for Moby. Clearly struggles with some self-doubt issues, and he eventually agrees to meet with a competitor. And the competitor that they go see for employment is, of course, Kang the Conqueror. Now, Kang is set to be in Ant-Man 3, and I just don't see how the Loki series, which focuses primarily on time travel, doesn't somehow directly tie into Kang, whose main thing is time travel. I don't know if he'll actually appear in the show, but I certainly think he'll be greatly discussed during the show, and the end of the Loki series will somehow tie in with why Kang shows up in the MCU. But after discussing with Kang for a while, Mobius emerges a new man, with clearly no confidence issues anymore. Dude's got some swag. Kang made an offer that he couldn't refuse, doubling his salary, paid vacation, and 3 assistants. Although he doesn't actually accept the offer, he takes Ant-Man's advice and uses this offer as leverage with the TVA. And he goes back to Mr. Alternity and says that he's going to resign unless he gets a promotion. And Mr. Alternity does not like this one bit. But again, he's never actually had to face an employee demanding a promotion or threatening to go to a competing organization. So of course, Mr. Alternity accepts Mobius' counteroffer. And using his new position of power, he dumps off all of his missing data assignment on his replacement. Kind of a jerk move.
Well, the jerk store called. They're running out of you.
But that's how Mobius' second story kind of comes to an end. And he really hasn't played a big role in any other stories, at least that I'm aware of. He did show up in the story where She-Hulk was on trial with the TVA. He served as one of the 3 judges over her case, but his role is pretty minor. Although he was the only judge to actually still be alive at the end of the story. But that's basically all there is out there on Mobius. Mobius in a nutshell, he's a bureaucrat who loves his job, desperately wants a girlfriend, and has low self-esteem. So that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, make sure you slap that like button. Want to see more videos like this? Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.